Everybody's here. Cool, cool. Thank you, Emoji J. Appreciate you, everybody. Let me put my AirPod in real quick. Makes things a little more clear. But everybody, welcome to Grow Through It. My name is Cure or CureAge. I usually go by Cure. Today we're going to be talking about. Sounds good, Fire. We're going to be talking a little bit about how adversities happen to us. We all go through certain things, but in the end, it's our choice whether to grow through them or we can simply go through them. And the difference between that is I'll use myself as an example. Growing up, I was very much involved in sports. I was definitely an athlete. I started martial arts at a very young age, basically a toddler. Um, as I became a teenager, things in the UFC just got so big that I decided to get into MMA. And then I realized, you know what, this is my dream career. I want to become a UFC fighter. And early on in my career, I had an injury that basically ended that career. That was about 10 years ago. And it was a very rough time. I had to go to rehab. I couldn't walk for a long time. All these things happen. And with that, though, instead of, dwelling in it for too long, I basically started getting into the dynamic of how can I make this better? How can I make this work? I cannot stay away from the MMA world. I need to be around it. And so I would still be at these gyms, I'd light train, things like that. And all of a sudden I started finding myself getting asked for advice by other fighters. And I realized, okay, I've had almost 20 years of experience at that point. And then I started seeing them succeed through my advice. And I was like, this is amazing. And so with that, I kind of ran with it, went and finished college, got my nutritional science degree. So I went in sports science. So I got that aspect down for athletes and especially MMA fighters. I got into physical therapy aspect, the mental and emotional aspect of it all. And so after that, I realized, you know what? I find coaching more fulfilling. That's how this show is going to go. So real quick, if you guys ever want to be in the show in the future, feel free to message me. Feel free to message Fire and Ice, Emoji J. We will definitely get back to you if you want to be a guest. Tonight's guests are Fire and Ice and Simi. Top badge. Well, this month she's a boss badge, so I really applaud her for that. But she is a top badge as well. And so I want to say hello to everybody ahead of time and thank you ahead of time for all the gifts. And we're going to go ahead and get started and start getting some stories out and start getting some ideas and different perspectives on life and how we can start growing through our life, not just going through it. So I'm going to go ahead and have Fire and Ice. She's our first guest tonight. When you are ready, you go ahead and hit that guest box button. And we definitely want to hear it all. Here she is, ladies and gentlemen, Fire and Ice. I'm gonna go ahead and put you in a little bit of bigger view once you get in.
Oh, I'm here.
There you are.
What's up?
How are you?
I'm good. I literally just got off work and got to get out of my scrubs. So I'm like, hey,
Perfect. So everybody, again, welcome to Grow Through It. Here we're gonna talk about Fire and Ice's story of a certain adversity that she has gone through in the past and how she grew from that and became the Fire and Ice she is today. So what is something, you don't have to go obviously everything, but what's one thing that you can think of that really impacted your life that you grew from?
there's a lot of things that have impacted my life. We face a lot of adversity, and we all react to different situations differently. Some people they take it more to heart than others. One thing that I will share is I was homeless at the age of 15, and I had no will to be any better or survive or anything of that nature. To now, I'm a successful nurse. I was top of my class when I went through school, and I had to find the motivation to get there. And I used to think that that would never happen. When I was younger, something happened, and there was a lot of stuff that brought me into a deep depression, and one incident just dropped me down completely. When that happened, my family found out what happened, and I was ostracized because it was a black mark on the family. So when I was 15,
Right.
my brother graduates high school, and then I'm like, where is everybody? My mom calls me on her home phone and goes, by the way, I moved out. You have 2 weeks, you're out. And I'm 15. So all of a sudden, I find myself homeless. And I'm like, well, at least I have a job. Um,
Huh.
and then going to school and all that kind of stuff, 15 alone, no one wanted anything to do with me in school, like in my family, because it looked bad on them to have someone who would allow something to happen to them. Well, I went down and I was living out of my car, and then I dropped out of high school. Um, I made a lot of bad choices, and I just had no will to really go forward. So I was thinking of any way to sabotage myself. When I was a kid, I used to have a really strong drive. That went away a couple years later, so from 15, and then it was actually September 3rd of 2003. There was a moment where in 1 week, two people I saw. One, and they're both from my past. One person I was in Girl Scouts with and I went to high school with. I saw her working at a bank when I had negative balance. And then she was there, and she was actually the person who was helping me. And she's like, what's going on? What's happening? And then she
Right.
took a break and we were talking. And I'm like, well, I've been homeless for this long. I've been doing this. I mean, I'm still working, but, and I broke down. She's like, oh, okay. And walked away. So I'm like, no, I'm better than that. And I have kind of a little superiority complex because I'm very competitive. So I'm like, no, I know I'm better than her because I'm smarter than her. I have more drive than her. How dare she look down on me? So I got pissed.
Right.
And then someone's mom was like, oh, that's just her, and said something negative about me. And those two things where I'm like, mm-mm, no, she didn't, drove me to make the decision where I need to do something to change. Um, that aha moment, it's great because you're like, I know I need to change something. I still didn't have the motivation because I was still depressed. A month later, all of a sudden something happens and like, oh, I end up pregnant. And when I found out I was pregnant, that's like, oh, now I have a time limit. I'm going to be doing this
Yeah.
by myself. There's no father around. It's just me. I will not have my child, who's an innocent, have a mother who is, I know I need to change, and this, he doesn't deserve that. He deserves better. So quickly, it was like, what do I need to do? I need to get a really good job. I need something that is long term, dependable. I need a roof over his head. I need to do this. I need to get everything together to be a role model for that child because I'm the only one he has.
You need to be that grow person that competitive grow person that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, and it's
Come
really
back,
hard
come
because,
back, fire. Where's that competitive fire?
oh, trust me, it's there. We still have a couple of board games banned in family gatherings because my brother and I, we duke it out.
So when you were pregnant, you decided that this is it. This is what you got
Yeah,
to do.
this is it. He, like, I didn't know if it was boy or girl, but it's boy. He's 18 now. He didn't deserve to have a mother who was struggling and to have to deal with someone who is weak and is making excuses. I need to show him what strength is, how to overcome things. So I got my stuff together. Um, I'm a nurse right now. I'm a registered nurse. And when I was doing that, I had no motivation to go anywhere. One little thing said to me, which was condescending from my family, was my sister-in-law was like, because she's a nurse, she's like, you should be a nurse because you do really well in psych since you're crazy just like the rest of them. You'll fit in well. I'm like,
Right.
hmm. My thought was, well, if we have a recession, if anything happens, no matter what, there's going to be healthcare. So
Yeah,
I'll
very
always have
true.
a job. So I'm like, okay, I'll go do that. I'm smart. I've always excelled in math and science. Did all the prereqs, straight A's, everything like that. The entire time I'm a character at a theme park, dancing around in fur, and then doing balloon animals because it's a extra side hustle that paid well for someone with like
Right.
really nothing. And it was good because I had made connections through that theme park and it helped me. I was able to save enough to put myself through college by myself and
Wow.
not having debt and be able to put my kid in daycare when I needed to, spend
Yeah.
time with him, do my schoolwork, and go through life. Um, it took a, about 6 years. I needed to wait an extra year to get into nursing because I was missing one prereq. But the
Mhm.
moment that I got into nursing school, I picked one that was near my child's school, not the one I wanted to go to because I needed to be near him. Well, I went through that. I fell in love with nursing, realized I like blood, guts, and gore. And I'm like, yes, ER. My favorite day
Get
was
it.
watching a foot get chopped off. I'm like, yes, amputation. Nice. It was gross for most people. I love it.
So that's how you found
Uh,
your love for nursing was
yeah,
through,
there's passion there.
yeah.
There's also other things. There's my anger and my fight. I also tunnel that too because when I was pregnant, I was 19. I got,
Mhm.
oh, and I got ridiculed by nurses when I would go through things. They would dismiss me because I was young and I was naive, seen as stupid. Oh, she's from nowhere.
Right.
She's
She
doing
doesn't
this.
have her high school diploma,
Yeah,
this and that.
she doesn't have a high school diploma because I'm a dropout. And
That kicked in the
I,
competitive edge in
yeah,
you.
so I'm like,
Let me show them what's up.
y'all don't know what's going on and you're just prejudging and you guys are naive. So you gonna learn today. So I got my GED my first year when I was going to junior college, got all my prereqs and all that kind of stuff.
Wow.
Um, aced the GEDs, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh, wow. I forgot that I was one of those people that really didn't have to study. And when I looked, I'm like, I remember it. I'm like, oh, now I'm the top of my class. Okay. But then I slapped off, life gets in the way, and I was in the top 10% of my class, never really studying.
Wow.
And it kind of gives you that, hey, guess what? Even though you think so bad about yourself, look at what you did being a single mom with no input from anyone. And
Mhm.
look where you just brought yourself in this short amount of time to get where you're at. And people
Right.
look up to you and people come to you. And like, no matter where I went, because I switched jobs early on because I had to for another issue that happened where my family needed me and I need to be able to leave right away. So I switched and I'm a registered nurse case manager for medically fragile children. Um, when I went there, within 6 months, people that were there for 5 years were asking me, hey, do you know how I can do this? And I'm like, oh, yeah, here we go. They call me the keeper of
You were
knowledge
natural.
because I can just rattle off what they need to know or solve their
Right.
problems.
You were just kind of a natural, like do you think that maybe having your son at that time kind of kicked in that motherly instinct to go from being a nurse, working around some crazy, situations, like you said, to now working with children and being in like a totally different environment, but still as a nurse?
See,
Like, do you think
I
he
think,
plays a big part in that, your
yeah,
son?
my kid is my motivation for everything and to where I'm at. And I give him all the credit. He even knows. I tell him, I'm like, you do realize you saved my life. You made me who I am today. And
That's
he knows.
incredible.
I mean, we fight, argue, say weird things and joke, and it's a really odd relationship, but he knows. And he knows how much I appreciate him.
Absolutely.
Um, the drive for each of those is different. My drive for ER is the competitive, like, hey, I'm gonna get it. Like we have to race across, like against the clock. My drive for what I do now as a outpatient case manager for medically fragile kids is because my kid is medically fragile as well. He has special needs and he has this, and I've had to advocate for him, and I had to learn things about his diagnosis and the school system and everything to get him to be able to succeed. I had to advocate for him because people would throw him under the bus and he'd just slide under the cracks. Unfortunately, when I went to this job as a case manager, I saw a lot of people don't know how to do that, or they don't have the drive or the knowledge or ability to grasp these harder, like the laws and just red tape they may need to cross to get what their child needs. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, all y'all are my kids now, and I'm a shark.
Right. You're a, what do you call, mama bear for all these
Yeah,
kids now.
pretty much. Moms will sit there and they'll call me crying, like, I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, what's this? Oh, okay, I see what. All right, here's what to do now. And then I tell them how to work basically the system because they're on government insurance because it's low income kids. So it's Medicaid and Medi-Cal and stuff like that. And there's a lot of red tape. So I cut the red tape for them. And I'm like, this is what you need to tell them. This is what you need to do. If not, you call me. We'll talk to your doctor. I'll yell at the pharmacy. He said, no, here, let's do this. So I get to yell at people all day and it's fun.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of fits in with how you said you have that competitive drive, and you have that mama bear drive ever since you had your son, and you just decided like, I'm better than this, that. And it took what, that one person to really like make you think like, you know what, like, who are you? I
Yeah,
know I can do better than you. And it's interesting because, real quick, like, not to cut you off, but like, that happens all the time, except the opposite. We go on to social media and we compare ourselves to so many people, as females, as males, transgenders, whatever it may be. We go and compare ourselves to people, and then we tear ourselves down. Where in your case, you literally did the opposite, and you saw someone who talked down to you in a way, as you're like there expressing yourself emotionally, how you felt, and literally just flip the script and be like, who do you think you are? I'm going to show her, I'm going to show everybody, especially my family. And then, your son comes along as a blessing. I need to get this stuff done.
yeah. So
And now you got all these kids that you're responsible for too.
yeah, over 6,000.
That is wild. That is wild. That
And
is very
now
impressive.
I'm running orthopedic clinics and doing all that for my cerebral palsy kids.
That's beautiful. I love that. That
Getting
is,
them all the durable medical equipment they need, their wheelchairs, their walkers, their PT appointments, their OT, everything like that. And actually running the clinic where we bring an orthopedic doctor in from Los Angeles all the way to our little rural area. And he is an expert in his field. And then we have our PTs, our OTs that we're bringing in, and then vendors coming in going, I'm going to fix your wheelchair right here, right now. And I'm the one running that clinic. We haven't had one since in 2018.
wow. And here you are, you're saving the day for so many people.
Yeah,
Do you ever think about that? Like, do you ever just like come home from work and just sit back and think about that?
I come home from work, I sit back and go, if I sit down, I'm going to fall asleep.
So you're exhausted, but when I think, if maybe if you just, I don't know, have you ever tried to just lay there and think about like, I did this for this many people. I do this every day for this many children, this many parents, that, maybe are not capable, or just don't have the resources, and you provide it for them. And I think that is what helps you. I'm guessing that's what helps you wake up in the morning and go do what you got to do every day.
I'm wired a little differently, I guess, because what drives me is anger.
Yeah.
To be honest, anger,
That's
because
very cool.
I do that and I know it. And I'm like, I have strong worth ethic. I have strong sense of self. I know I'm going to put like every hand forward to be the
Right.
best that I can be, because that's like my motto is be the best. When you're the best, be better. Because we're
That's a
always gonna go.
competitive edge, of course.
Yeah. So it's like, because you're never going to be a master of anything, because there's
Yeah.
always more to learn.
Right. Everybody, I want you guys to all please give Fire and Ice a favorite, and just gift her as much as you'd like. Thank you everyone ahead of time and behind for all the gifts. I really appreciate it. Welcome to Grow Through It. It's a new show where we talk about adversities and how we grew through those adversities, not just went through them, but we grew through them so that we can become better people. That's what life's about. If we're not growing, we're dying. And we don't want to do that. I know that sounds really depressing, but it's the truth. We got to constantly learn, constantly grow, and that's what it's for. So, Fire, I really appreciate you being my first guest on my first show and sharing your story with everybody. I hope it helps some people in here. I'm going to go ahead and have you hop out.
Challenge
Is there
anger.
anything you wanted to say real quick?
Um, when people tear you down and stuff, because family does it, friends do it, we do it to ourselves.
Right.
That and like look in the mirror and go, is it really true? And then I use anger as a motivator, because I'm like, oh no, I know who I am deep down. I'm gonna show you guys that you're wrong. So instead of internalizing it to hurt, use it to drive you. Anger
Yeah,
is actually a very helpful tool to get out, to be a motivator, because it can destroy you if you don't let it release.
absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Everybody, again, thank you for coming to Grow Through It. And this is where we learn how we can grow through adversities, struggles, certain circumstances, times. We all have them. We all go through them. And as you noticed and saw and listened to Fire's story, she was literally living out of a car. And instead of letting that make it worse, she decided, you know what? Like, she met somebody that she knew from, how many years ago, we don't even know. But the point is, she saw someone that looked down on her because of her circumstance. And instead of looking down and feeling bad and throwing a pity party for herself, she flipped the script. She's like, I'm better than this. I don't need someone to look down on me. And that's like, that's the whole point. She used that competitive edge that she always had. And I, I went cocky. She says, like whatever it takes. She got that confidence out of, that she always had. Don't get it wrong. She always had that confidence. She just needed someone to remind her. And that's the type of person she needed. Each case is always going to be different. We're always going to need maybe someone more, um, I guess, more assisting, someone that's like, you could do better than this. I know you can. And that's more, maybe more uplifting for some people. Or in Fire's case, someone that's like, oh, okay, well, enjoy your day. It was good seeing you, blah, blah. Kind of pushing her off like she doesn't mean anything. And she's like, took a look at herself and was like, you know what, I can do this. I've done better than her before. I can do better than her again. And so that's all it took, was a little anger to drive. And that's why I like to talk about emotions, because emotions, people believe emotions, there are bad emotions and there are good emotions, when the truth is there aren't. They're simply feelings and emotions. That's it. They simply are. They exist. And really, really quick for like in between, before we get our next guest, Simeon, there's a little quote I like to say to my clients and to everyone. And I want you guys to also remember to stick around to the end of the show, because we do have a little, we're going to have both guests in the box kind of explain different, exchange different ideas, and maybe you guys can get something from that as well. But the quote for this week in this episode is, life happens for us. not to us. You guys want to write that down? You want me to repeat it? Push one. But life happens for us, not to us. So as long as you remember that, like Fire did, even if she didn't know that exact quote, she realized it without it, and she took it and ran with it. Obviously, she went from a high school dropout living in her car to the head, and now she's under got 6,000 kids under her care, through case managing, through nursing. Like that's wild. That's very impressive. And everybody favor everyone, obviously. But if anyone has not favored Fire and Ice, please hit her with that favorite. She does stream. And again, welcome to Grow Through It, where we talk about growing through life, because there's more to life than just going through it. We want to grow. If we're not growing, what are we doing? That's a good question to ask yourself. If we're not growing, what are we doing? So before I have the next guest come in, um, I just want to say, for me, in my story of how I grew through my circumstances, I couldn't even walk at a certain point after that injury. And that was a little over 10 years ago. It took me, kind of similar to her when she said people, when she got into working with children, people were coming up to her for advice, and she was a newbie. People were coming up to me for advice, and I'm used to being the one that's getting coached, getting this and that, and then getting in the ring and doing what I got to do. That to me was my business. That was business. That meant business. I know people do it as a hobby, but that for me was my job. And so when people started coming up to me, it was different, and it's all about perspective. I could have looked at it like, yeah, man, just do what I did, blah blah. Yeah, man, it's whatever. I could have just had like a different type of attitude. It's really attitude. Attitude and perspective make a big difference in how we can grow or how we can go through life. So with that, I found a fulfillment I never knew I had until I just switched my perspective. I decided, you know what, I'm not going to be this sour, bitter person, because, like Fire said, I'm better than that. And sometimes it just takes a little wake up call. For me, it was a blessing in disguise, and that goes along with the quote of the week. Life happens for us, not to us. So that injury, of course, it could have been avoided if I had taken better care of my body. So it's not like, oh yeah, you need to get injured to realize, maybe you have a passion in something more fulfilling in something else. But that's what happened. So those were the cards I was dealt, and with those cards, I turned them into a royal flush, just like Fire did, and just like Simi did. And we'll have Simi hop in just 1 minute. So, I mean, you guys, if there's anything you want to share in the comments, feel free. And like I said, please favorite Fire and Ice. She does stream. And with, I guess, no more introduction, we're going to go ahead and have Simi hop in the guest box. And she's going to share a little bit about her adversities and the struggles she went through growing up in her life, and how she grew from them and didn't just go from them. So Simi, whenever you're ready, go ahead and hit that guest box button. Here she is, ladies and gentlemen.
Hi.
Simi, hello, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm
Nice to
great,
meet
I'm
you.
great.
Sort of
You
fun.
too. I know we've seen each other in comments here and there, but it's great to see your face to face. So I appreciate you being my first guest of my first show. It's been fun so far. And congratulations, by the way, on your boss badge this month. I know you're usually a top badge.
Yeah, it just kind of happened. I don't know.
That's how it happens. I'm about to be a VIP here in the next
Yeah,
few hours, probably.
it just happened.
It just happens, it is what it is. But everybody, if you haven't already, please go favorite Simi. She's awesome. She's about to share her story of how she went through adversity and didn't decide to just go through it. She decided to grow through it. And this is the person she is today. So Simi, please tell us, like, what's something that you experienced in your life, or struggled with in your life, that you decide not to be the typical, sour, bitter, I don't like people, or turn your back towards the light, the world, and instead embrace it and accept it.
Right. Well, a little background, I guess, about me to sort of introduce that is
Mhm.
that I'm third generation Korean,
Okay.
born in Japan, and I grew up in Belgium in Europe.
Wow.
And um, also, I think maybe there's a timing thing as well. I'm 37. I'll be 38 at the end of this year, and I think like at the time that I was growing up over there, there was a little bit um,
In Belgium or
in Belgium. So when I moved from Japan, I was 1. So I really lived my whole sort of childhood in Europe. I went to an international school over there, so that's why I speak English.
You
Um,
speak great English. I would have never guessed you were from another
well, it's a
country.
good language. It's kind of like like an army kid that grew up overseas, but went to an
Right.
American.
Yeah.
It's the same thing, but um, basically, I grew up around a lot of Western people, mainly.
Yeah.
That at the time, I think Asians were not. The neighborhood that I grew up, there were not many, and I didn't have any Korean friends. No, or maybe there was like 1 or 2, but none my age. There was just no one really relatable in my grade, in my neighborhood, in my area. Um, and so I got teased a lot. There was a lot of racism, sort of the pulling on the eyes, making fun of the language. At the time, I think things that are now more popular, like sushi and K-pop, and those things weren't really around. So it
Right.
was just
Korean
always, "Oh, that
barbecue.
smells, yeah, that smells funny," or "that looks gross," or it was like very much. Um,
Frowned
it
on.
was just more rare, yeah,
Right.
at the time, I think. And then, so at like lunch, for example, my mom would pack me these amazing, looking back on it, amazing bentos. Like she would get up at like 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning, and she would like make everything, right? And it was
Wow.
just like beautiful bentos. And I would literally get to school and like throw it away because
Oh.
the first few times that I had brought them, people would be like, "Oh, that stinks. What is that? That looks gross." And I wanted nothing more than like a brown paper bag with like a sandwich and some chips.
Right.
Like that's what I wanted.
You wanted
And
to
like
fit
like a
in.
Coke, you know?
Yeah. You
Um,
wanted to fit in
yeah.
with everybody else.
Yeah. And here I was with like my little thermos with like green tea. Like,
All
then
the
my mom
healthy
packed.
stuff that we love
Yeah.
now.
It was like heavy. It was really heavy. Like, it was packed in there. And I was embarrassed. I was always embarrassed. And it got to the point where my mom would, our common household language was Japanese, not Korean, because I'm third generation. My parents were born and raised in Japan, so my mom can speak Korean and Japanese, and then my dad can only speak Japanese. So
Right on.
Japanese was our household language, and so my mom would speak to me or my dad would speak to me in Korean, in Japanese out in public, and I would respond to them in English because I was embarrassed. And I'd be like, "Don't talk to me in that language,"
Right.
kind of
Yeah. I
thing,
think.
because I would get that ching chang chong type of, that sort of thing that like used to happen.
Right. The
And it used to,
typical.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that used to really affect me. I think because I didn't have anyone relatable around me.
Right. That
Parents,
makes sense.
when you're a kid, you're like,
Yeah.
no. So it just, like I remember having thoughts like, I wish I was white or black, or even I had a big Lebanese community around me. So
Yeah.
even I was like, I
Belgium.
wish I was Lebanese, or like just not Asian, like not Japanese or Korean kind of,
Right.
and it really affected me deeply. And then sort of I want to fast forward, I guess, to 6 years ago. I had my daughter, and um, I think that's when I really started thinking about just how ethnicity, race really affects your life. Because
Mhm.
my child is, so my ex my baby daddy, I guess, is Pacific
Connection.
Islander. Yeah.
Hmm.
And so my children are Pacific Islander Korean mixed.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a really pretty mix, I'm sure.
oh, they're perfection. They're gorgeous. But it's
Of
really
course.
funny though because their passports, they actually hold Belgian and Japanese passports, which like by blood they're none of.
Very,
Like they're not
yeah,
either.
very different.
So that's kind of funny. But so with all that, and we're in Japan, so um, and my like kid's dad, he doesn't speak Japanese. I cannot read and write Japanese very well.
Right.
So when me raising my kids here, I'm trying to figure out, okay, how can I, like, what do I do? You know what I mean? Like, what do they represent? Who are they? How do I introduce our family? Like, who we
Right.
are. And so that kind of thing really, it's been something that's been on my mind. Someone asked me, are you going to put them in international school? Are they going to go to school in English over here or Japanese school? So that was been, something. And
Confusing
they were,
time.
yeah, it took me years. And I had my kids in international school for their like preschool. And then I've switched them over to Japanese school. It's a struggle, but
Right.
they're learning.
Right.
And the last year and a half I've been on social media because I think like everyone with COVID, we're spending a lot of time at home. So I started out on an audio chat app.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if I can say it on here, so I won't. But
Don't worry about it. It's okay.
um, I connected with a lot of Korean Americans. And although I'm not
Okay.
an American citizen, because I speak English and I did grow up around not a whole lot, but some American culture, I
Right.
think they're a little more relatable. And I met a lot of Korean Americans that could speak some Korean, no Korean, a lot of Korean, and it was just
Right.
really sort of eye-opening, and it pulled something in me, that I want to know more about my culture because I don't really know a
Yeah.
lot other than food.
Absolutely.
I'm
Right.
great at
You
doing
felt
Korean
like you,
food, but I don't speak the
right.
language or,
You felt like you fit in somewhere, and now
yeah,
it's like, you know what? All this time, like, I've been trying to hide my who I am, and all this time, it's like, really, you just took a few people to remind you, like, how incredible your culture is just
yeah,
by listening to them.
yeah,
And
um,
that's that support. That's what I was talking about earlier, how sometimes it takes someone to look down on you, and that can make us feel weak, or a certain type of way, or it can take people that are supportive, like you found, people in a community of, some people spoke Korean, some people spoke a lot of it, and it
yeah,
made you feel like you actually belong somewhere, and then you
yeah,
were able to embrace, basically, is what you're saying.
yeah. And there was like a stream that I joined that the theme was Korean moms, dads, and aunties and uncles. And it was kind of like a affirmations kind of stream
It's
where
interesting.
you would just go in there and maybe you wanted to talk about something good that happened that day, and and you just wanted a little affirmation on that, or maybe you're nervous about a job interview, or maybe something bad happened and or you wanted advice and you just kind of go into that stream. And so when I went in there and I kind of just spoke about how I felt like I wasn't Korean enough, but I'm not Japanese
Really?
enough, and I'm not white enough to be Belgian. Because I have Belgian citizenship. So
Right.
when I said that, but I said, I want to be Korean, like I'm Korean by blood, you know, and
Right.
for some reason, it's like a room full of strangers on the stream, and I just like got really emotional. I got really upset, and I just started crying because the first thing that they said to me was, "You're Korean," and we like that's it. Do you know what I mean? You're whoever you want to be,
Yeah.
and like we're Korean and you're Korean, and like you're our sister, and whatever you need in your journey, we're gonna help you. So they actually really helped me. So a year and a half ago is when I started to learn Korean. now I can actually read and write it a little bit, you
That's
know.
impressive. Very cool.
And you know, the speaking part is really difficult. I need to work on some vocab, but we're getting there.
So, quick question is because I grew up in around a lot of Japanese culture because of karate and martial arts and judo, things like that. Um, so I know little Japanese words and phrases, things like that. But is so I know that because I know, and I don't want to sound unintelligent, um, but like because Japan and Korea are not too far apart and they're both considered part of Asia, is how hard is it to transition Japanese, the language, into Korean? Do you ever get like that mixed up?
um, I don't get it mixed up,
Kind of like
but
Spanglish, you know, when people mix a little Spanish and English.
so the grammatical structure,
Mm,
the best way I can describe it is because people have said it to me this way, is that a lot of times if you translate directly Japanese to English, it'll kind of sound like Yoda speaking.
right, yeah.
And so in Korean, it's similar grammatical structures.
Right.
Sorry, it's daytime over here.
That's okay. No
um,
problem.
but um, there are some similar words. So the word yaksoku, which is promise,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
Korean is yaksok. So it's very similar.
Yaksok. Okay. Okay.
So they're very similar.
Because I mean the reason why I asked too is because I speak a few languages as well, and one of them my dad is from Serbia, and
Mhm.
Serbian language is very. It used to be one country with Bosnia, Montenegro, Croatia, even northern part of Greece, and a couple other countries, and the language is all the same, but it's like America, how you have Californian, you know, accent, and then you have like
Mhm.
Texas accent, and you have like East Coast accent. So that's why that's kind of what made me ask about that. I mean, I know
Uh,
it's different country, but
so it's
obviously,
not
you know,
that
the
similar.
words, right? Yeah,
Not,
but
yeah.
like what I was saying is, so like with Serbian, I'll say certain things in Serbian, and someone in Polish, like from Poland,
Mhm.
will catch a couple of words in there,
Yeah.
and like the whole, you know, the whole worldwide hi and bye ciao is kind
Right.
of, you know, we use that, Italians use that, a lot of countries use that.
Mm, I wouldn't say it's as similar as that, but I think
Hmm.
it has to do with some of the history as well.
Right,
With like yeah, like just in the past.
right,
But
right.
between Japan and Korea as well. So then there's some of the language things there. But um yeah, it's completely different. I
So
wish it was a little more
how
similar because I think it would be easier for me to learn.
that's okay. So basically how you grew from it was by finding this group of people
Community, yeah.
who were this like a support group in a way.
Mhm.
What and how did you come across that or them?
So it was just really, really at random. I didn't even go looking for growth. I didn't think that that was, it's been something that was on my mind, and but it was sort of like subconscious level. I wasn't like actively looking, but I just was on this app. Um, I think I can say it actually, but it's an app called Clubhouse, and I was on
Never
there,
heard of it.
and then, but yeah, I transitioned from there to here actually.
Okay, yeah.
And
This is
so
where
then
it's at.
once I came on to here, I had so much fun. Like it's audio to visual is completely different.
Right.
Video, um, more exciting. And so over here, I noticed that there's a bit of a smaller Asian community. And unfortunately, I experienced a lot of racism on this app as well.
Right.
I think there's all kinds of trolls on any social media platform wherever you go. They're all
Of
around.
course. Of course.
Um, and unfortunately for me, I usually, it's more than any other thing that I get trolled about. It's usually about me being Asian.
Mm,
So probably my first few days on here, I was getting green card hunter and China virus and all
uh,
those kinds of
yeah, of
things.
course.
That kind of was happening every single day.
So
And then oh, go ahead.
sorry, no, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to ask, like, because like going back from when you were younger and how you were kind of ridiculed and you felt out of place and like the outsider in Belgium to now where you feel like you're starting to embrace your culture and your heritage, and now you joined an app where you are being ridiculed.
Mhm.
Um, did you feel that like you had more like confidence in where you came from and who you are as from growing from that situation as a child to now having your kids and everything like that? Do you feel like it was a little bit different when you
Yeah.
were
I think that me living in Japan, where I'm not, well, visually anyways, we're Asian. It's an Asian country, so I'm not a
right?
minority,
Mhm.
which I have been all my life where I
Right,
lived.
right, yeah,
Where there's something very empowering about that. So,
yeah.
unless I am shouting out I'm Korean, for the most part, people just assume that I'm Japanese. So, um, yeah, there's something that feels safe and empowering about that I
Yeah,
never had growing up. And being on this app, you know, I actually didn't have any plans to be top badge or anything like that. I really was just introduced by a friend to come hang out and watch their stream. And I kind of just like was like, all right, let me check it out. And I just hit live, and I just tried it. And
similar with me, similar.
yeah, even the first some months, I didn't really understand what the point of top badge was or what it was.
Right,
And one day there was a particular troll that came in that commented that my mixed children didn't deserve to live. And that
oh,
was for me like the last straw. I was like, no, that I'm not going to take that anymore. So that's when I decided I'm going to apply for top. I'm going to grind. I'm going to get my faves. I'm going to get my
right,
diamond up. And I'm going to make sure that, we as Asians have visibility and some representation, you know.
absolutely.
Um, I was like, you can come for me and say your little side comments, but you don't talk about my kids. I was like, no.
Right. Say
you know,
what you want about me, but not about my
so,
kids and not
like
about my
fire,
people.
the mama bear thing, it's a thing.
Exactly, same like fire. Yeah, the mama bear came
Yeah,
out,
it was like, no, not too much on, not at all on my kids, actually.
and
So,
that just made you just like what? No, I'm gonna show people what's
yeah,
up. I'm not gonna let
immediately.
this. I'm not gonna just go through this.
Yeah.
You're gonna go through, and it's interesting because listening to your story, like how you said none of it was planned, none of like how you met that group, that support group,
Yeah.
how this with your children, how with the app now that you're a top badge,
Yeah.
like none of it was ever planned. But it's interesting because my quote, how I mentioned earlier, life happens for us, it doesn't
Mhm.
happen to us. So
Right.
it's like it totally fits with your entire story. And I feel that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, that maybe you were subconsciously manifesting this in some kind of way, like because you kept after you had your daughter, you said it was 6 years ago, correct?
Yeah.
You started, really contemplating on like what school to put her in and things
Right.
like that. And then, maybe that just kind of attracted, like the law of attraction kind of,
It's
you know,
it's very possible. I don't
everything came
know.
into it.
It's such an incredible, strange thing.
Yeah. Doesn't have
I
to be a label on it, but it happened.
Yeah.
And here you are. It's
Yeah.
awesome. I love that.
I think that sort of incident on this app happened maybe 3 months into me joining. I actually joined the app in December,
Oh, wow.
and then I
That
got my
was,
top badge in June. So
oh,
yeah,
congrats.
like, it was like a 6 month. It was very fast. I never expected it, um, but I
She
worked
went
hard,
all
put
out.
in my hours.
Yeah,
I was doing
absolutely.
10
You
to
got
12
to.
hour streams, so
Yeah.
every single day. And since I joined the app in December, I think I've taken a total of like 2 weeks off, max.
Wow. So you
Max.
love it too. You didn't just do
I
it to
really
show
enjoy
these
it.
people.
Yeah, yeah.
So can I ask real quick, just before I have Fire and Ice come join you in the box? So what about that, like what about that comment or that drive that you got to really hustle, 12, 10 hours a day to get
Mhm.
that top badge? Like what really triggered you? What I mean, other than that comment, like what really made you want, did you want to do it for yourself or more so for like your
Well,
kids or
it was every day that I was getting comments like that, and it was becoming more and more frequent. And
okay?
then that comment sort of was like just that pushed me over the edge with it. So
You had
I was
enough,
actually really affected by that. I don't usually get affected by trolls and their comments like on a mental level. Like it'll be
right?
draining or exhausting, like mentally tiring, but I don't get emotional about things. So I didn't tell anybody, even my best friends on the app. I didn't tell anybody for about a week, 2 weeks, I think. I actually just really internalized that in that moment. And, people could be like, oh, you've been kind of quiet lately. Like, is everything okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm okay. Like, just tired, like brushing it off. But it really affected me. And I thought about it. And that's when I was like, I'm getting this all the time. And who do I go to? And there's
Right.
not a lot
Yeah.
of Asian top badges.
I haven't paid attention, but I mean, I
There's
guess now that I think about it, I guess, yeah, I
there's
never
very
really realized
few.
that.
So there was it really made me think, well, I want some visibility. I want some representation for us, and that
Yeah.
doesn't discount anybody else's experiences
No,
on
of
here.
course not.
Everybody else,
It's for you.
everyone experiences things on here, but I just wanted something that's for us.
Right.
Uh,
Yeah.
so, and I don't
That's
know that I'm the
beautiful.
best representation. I don't speak Korean, but like,
You speak a little bit from what
yeah,
you said. You
I'm
do
getting
speak a
there.
little bit, and you
So,
speak Japanese.
yeah.
So everybody, again, welcome to Grow Through It. As we're gonna conclude the episode, I'm gonna have Fire and Ice hop in the box, and we're gonna exchange a little of a conversation, and we'll end it with a little bang here. But if you guys ever want to be a guest on the show, go ahead and feel free to message me on Instagram or Snapchat. You can also message Emoji J. Um, and I really appreciate everybody. I'm not trying to ignore anyone that has come in. I promise. I've noticed everybody. I just don't want to interrupt our amazing guests here. So I know that I know you girls have both. Thank you very much. I know you girls have both like gone in your own paths, but it seems like the one biggest thing I noticed that you both had in common that really kickstarted, that growth through the life that you have and where you're at now was that mama bear attitude.
Yeah,
What do you
motherhood.
you girls think that like, or is there something else that I maybe missed?
Thank
It's
you.
I don't think it's necessarily just mama bear. It's more the compassion and the drive to like help others and show others they can be better and stuff like that. Not just the kids. That's what a mama bear is like we want to show you the world is yours. You can take it and you can do it with respect and dignity.
Yep.
But it's not just to children. It's to
Right.
anyone you care about.
Mm.
Absolutely. Is that you kind of relate to that, Cindy?
Yeah, I agree completely. Fire and I, we met randomly, and she's one of my actually best friends on this app. She's one of my closest friends on this app that I
Right.
met on this app, and I think that's, of course, we've had very different experiences, different
Yeah.
paths, but I think one thing that we have in common is, we try to hold space for others.
Right.
We try to show love. We try to show compassion. We try to be understanding. Um, and I think we try to preserve. I think it's not just about somebody's dignity, is it there or not, whatever, but I think to preserve that dignity when we try to help them. Because it's
Yeah.
easy to help someone and strip them of everything that they have and everything that they've done. But it's another thing to
Yeah.
do that behind the scenes a little bit.
Right. Exactly. Because a
And
lot
then
of a lot of
preserve that
times it's
dignity.
yeah, and a lot of times what happens is people want other people to see what they're doing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
instead of just doing it for themselves, they want to. It's like a spectator thing where that's not really like where the growth really comes in. It's more about just doing it, and then the results show. You could be working out 6 days a week at the gym and then come back and all of a sudden instead of and you don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with recording it and inspiring and motivating others to do the same, but there are times where sometimes it's better just to, depending on the person, to just do your thing not even talk about it, just do it. You know, there's some people talk the talk, but they won't walk the walk.
Mhm.
And, you know, that's kind of what both you ladies did in your lives. And it's very admirable how you took, you know, different things like being an outcast or feeling like an outsider and just embracing it one day, and how it, you know, you just fully embrace it, and all the way to the point that you took it onto a platform, a social media platform, and showed people like, I'm gonna represent my heritage through this app. I'm gonna be a top edge. I'm not just gonna be, you know, a streamer. I'm gonna be one of the top streamers. And, you know, and with Fire, like she, you know, she went from, you know, being ridiculed too when she was younger, and, you know, kind of gave up at an early point of her life and decided, you know what, like, no, I know I can do more than that. And here I am, like, in charge of, you know, 6,000 different kids through all these different, you know, case managing and nursing and everything. And it's amazing how you guys grew from your adversity into who you are today. So everybody, welcome to Grow Through It as we conclude the show here in a couple minutes. Please favorite these ladies, Simi and Fire and Ice. They're incredible. If you heard their stories, you know why. I'm sure there are many more stories they have to tell, but definitely favorite them. Simi is a top badge on the app. This month she actually got boss badge. Congrats again on that. Fire and Ice also does stream, so please favorite them. And if you haven't favorited me already, it's at the top, the star. And if anybody is interested in being in the show and sharing something you guys had gone through in your life, and not just gone through though, that's the whole point, but something you grew through and grew from to be the person you are today, let me know. Message me. You can message Emoji J, and we'll definitely get back to you. And is there anything else you girls want to talk about or bring
So
up to each other? Since I know you girls like to talk off the app as well, so maybe there's something you
we
girls
were on
want
the phone
to.
right before the show. Um,
So you already knew
what
each
I
other's
find
stories.
what I find is funny is our stories are different, but our drive is very similar. However, the way we project it is very different, but it's both heart and stuff. Like she's very kind and sweet and very like, here, let me be gentle. And I'm like, I'm more slappy in the face, going, what? And I clap back and I'm the protector because I'm like, no, I'm gonna take the attention on me because I I can clap back and I don't want
Right.
you guys to get hurt. Where Simi's like,
She
I'm gonna hug you and I love you.
I can relate to both, to be honest. I can definitely relate to both, but I do know, because I do have a little experience, very little experience with the Japanese culture, but that's how they are in Japan. They're very, you know, it's a very humility type of country. You know, it's all about humble. And that's what I learned literally as a toddler. My dad grew up in training martial arts, my uncle, even my godfather. You know, so I was born into that world. And that's why I couldn't escape it. Even after my injury, I had to stay there. So, you know, and it's interesting how Simi, of all the days, Simi was the guest today, and I happened to choose this shirt without even knowing what the story was going to be. But it's a thing. It's called
Oh,
Creative Living, and it says they can't. I
very
forget what it says.
Yeah.
To be honest. They can't bury us.
I
So
love
it's
that.
basically showing all the different colors and all the different people around the world, you know, white, black, you know, or African American, you know, Latino, all these, you know, different cultures, Asian, everything into one, you know, and we're all human beings at the end of the day. It doesn't matter what we look like, it doesn't matter where we came from. And I just had to put that out there because I kind of forgot I was wearing this shirt, and I noticed it when Hot Fire came in the box. I was like, oh yeah, it's a perfect shirt. And on the back, it's like a big one. So,
Love that.
um, but yeah, so again, everybody, thank you for coming to the first episode of Grow Through It. And please favorite these ladies. They're incredible. And I want to thank both of you so much for being on my show, especially for this first initial episode. Um, there is something I did want to share. And again, if you guys are interested in being a guest on the show, feel free to message me on Instagram and we can definitely make that happen. It'll be every Monday night, Pacific time, 9 p.m., midnight, technically Tuesday, if you're on the East Coast. Right now, I believe it's about 2 p.m. where Simi is at in Japan. So it's a little, depending on where you're at, but I think it works for a lot of different areas around the world. The one thing I'd like everybody to remember as I conclude the show, I will get back on in a little bit, but something that we can do is I want all of us to really think and figure out where we can go, but better yet, let's look at where we can grow. And I don't just, obviously we've grown through things, and but the whole point is that we're going to always keep growing, because if we're not growing, what are we doing? Right? So everyone in the comments or any of the lurkers in here, whoever's in here, I want you guys to really, take that with you for the rest of this week and think about not just where you can go, but where we can really grow. Obviously with Fire's case, she had someone look down on her, and that's all it took. And she decided to, what? No. And Simi, it took Simi, just
Million
exploring the fact that she had, yeah, exactly. It took a little bit of haters, and it took having a daughter, and it took all these things that were confusing to her because of the way she grew up. She kind of blocked out where she's from and all these things. So everybody, that's one thing I would like all of us to do is let's just figure out not just where we can go from in our life from here on out, but where we can grow, because growth is everywhere. You can look at yourself, you can look at your bedroom, you can look at your house, you can look at your job, you can look at life. There's growth in everything. So again, everybody, thank you for coming to Grow Through It. Favorite everybody, please, especially these ladies, my guests. I'm going to go ahead and exit the girls out of the box. Everybody, thank you for the gifts too, as well. I did notice everybody, and thank you for coming by, ladies. I will hop on in about 20 minutes or so. Got to give Emoji J props. Thank you for filming this first episode, and let's fingers crossed, blessings and prayers that we get this show featured next week. So
Thank you for having
thank
us.
you again, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You guys want to come back later on, and about a half hour, I will be back on. But thank you, everybody, for showing up. It meant the world to me. So again, thank you. And I'm gonna hop off here. I'll be back on about a half an hour. Everybody, if you're not back on my stream, that's okay. I appreciate you coming, and everybody have a wonderful night. And let's grow through life together. Well, I gotta wait for these roses. Thank you. I don't want to cut them off. I don't know what happens, but thank you again, everybody. Simi, thank you. All right, everybody, have a great night.